Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Nedelka with eXp Realty, your realtor mom. Today we are going to continue a really important conversation about buying a home, not necessarily from a pressure standpoint, but more of a decision-making standpoint. And today I have Madison Avolio Oaks with Synergy One Lending returning to dive deeper into the home buying process and trying to get buyers through the financial side of it. So Madison, welcome back.
Thank you, it's so nice to be back.
Hopefully we can dig into some of the things to help buyers know if they're ready to get started and what are some of the things that they should continue to do to prep and get themselves ready.
The biggest first step for any, whether it be first-time home buyer, second-time home buyer, you could be on your 15th property, it doesn't matter. The first step is always to have a conversation with the lending expert that's in your corner. The biggest reason for that is because if you don't know how much you're approved for, it's really hard to have a conversation with an agent to set your budget, to set your price range. So having that initial conversation is really what not only gets the ball rolling, but really sets the stage for how you're going to be able to proceed moving forward. People always talk about like, oh, how much should I have saved, or how much should be on my credit cards? What should my monthly payments be like? And the only way to really get that aspect like down into the nitty gritty and to get those questions answered is to approach a lending expert.
Right.
Because like when I pull somebody's credit, which is what happens on either the initial call or the second one, depending on, how the conversations flow. When we pull your credit, we get a background history of everything that's there. We should have your income documents at that point too, so I can go through and calculate your income, look at your liabilities, get what's called your debt to income ratio. That really flows through the whole process.
Right.
We have to make sure that you can afford the housing payment that you want to have. We put in something that we think might be good for taxes, we put in a guesstimate for insurance, we go with the purchase price, we check and see what the interest rate's going to be like, and that really becomes a jumping off point. It could be that, maybe you've got $5,000 saved right now, and in order to get the property that you want, you need 20. So let's talk budget wise. Let's see how long it's going to take you to get the extra 15, or maybe it's deal structure wise, and that's when we call an agent in and we have a conversation about seller concessions and things that we can get for your specific loan type and for your specific situation. But really the first jumping off point and the first point to being ready is just having a conversation. Even if you feel like you're not ready yet, if it's something that's in maybe your 2026 goals, or just something that you see doing even in the next 2 to 5 years, having that conversation to see whether or not it's something that you can do or finding a path forward is really where you need to start.
For sure. And I do find that a lot of buyers, potential buyers, reach out to the agent first. And I am always going to direct them back to a lender because a lender is going to know, Madison's going to know what you need, like you said, and it's never too early to plan. That's what I think probably one of the biggest myths with buyers is they think, oh, well, I'm not ready right now, I'm gonna wait 3 months. Okay, well, if you're waiting 3 months, you need to talk to the lender last month or the month before, because really 6 months is probably a good point.
Yeah.
To at a minimum start. But if you've got debt.
And I found what happens too, okay, you've approached an agent. Why have you approached an agent? Is it because you have a property that you want to go and look at? Because that's usually what happens. Hey, I found this property on Zillow or Redfin or wherever, and I want to go take a look at it. And so your next question is, well, are you pre-approved? Do we even know if you can afford that house? And when you say that you have I want to purchase in 3 month kind of window, that dwindles down really fast. Not just in the sense of 3 months, time flies fast, but also you start looking at properties, you start figuring out what you like, maybe something amazing comes on the market 2 weeks after you initially contact your agent, and it spirals. That's what happened with me when I was buying my first house. We started looking in March. Something came on the market, it was a great budget, it ended up in a bidding war, we didn't get it, it is what it is. But we closed on our property in May, and it's a 30-day window. So from the time that we looked at that first property in March to then April we looked at a multitude of properties. And it was my first house. So from the time in March to April, that was a 30-day window. And we were like, oh, well, maybe we'll do it when our lease is up in June. And we closed on our house by May. So that window really ends up closing quickly, especially because it's an emotional purchase as well as like it's so exciting.
Very exciting, for sure. I think a lot of people are still stuck in the way it used to be, because I feel like well before I was in real estate, probably before I graduated from college and did all those things, I think the old way of doing it was you did go find your house first. I don't think you had to have a pre-approval before you started the process.
Yeah.
You would say, oh, well, I want to buy this house. Now let me see if I can get my funding in order. I feel like that's what it was a long time ago, and getting people to shift that.
I will say 2008 shift that a lot, because prior to 2008, there really weren't any lending laws.
Right.
It wasn't great. We tried, not we, because I wasn't around at that point, but lenders kind of in general tried to mess with numbers to see what they could just get you approved for. And that's part of what caused that collapse, is that people couldn't afford things because numbers were getting fudged and there weren't the guidelines associated with what we have now. Now we have to look at your income. We have to look at mortgage insurance, taxes, homeowners insurance. There's so much that goes into it that you need to know what you're getting into, not only like loan-wise and payment-wise, but process-wise, before you really do start falling in love with your potential home.
Right. And so getting people to realize that this is where we are now, and this is why the market most likely won't fall back to where, because I keep hearing that. You'd hear people talk, they're like, oh, well, we're waiting for everything to crash again. The reality is it's probably not, because lending's tightened up quite a bit.
Yeah.
And the 2008, like you said, it went from just going out, finding a house and saying, okay, well, this is what I'm going to buy, and they figure it out for you, to now they're going to qualify you first. And so I think that's part of the reason. Either they saw a house that they wanted to see, like you said, or they're thinking, well, I don't need a pre-approval, so I'm just going to go for this. And that's really not what it is anymore. Step one is your lender, and step two is the realtor. Of course, I will never turn somebody away that doesn't have their pre-approval, because I obviously have amazing lenders that I trust to get the process done. And Madison is really knowledgeable when it comes to all of that thing. She knows all the, like you said, debt to income and factoring in taxes. And once you find that house, that's when you can really hone in on the numbers, because now you know what the taxes are. We still have to guess your insurance, but if you're wanting to make an offer, your insurance agent can figure out the numbers for that property and what it is that you're looking for, and get a pretty good idea of where you're going to be.
And this is where like having your real estate team in place is so beneficial. Knowing who, like getting at least quotes for possible homeowners insurance, and having an agent that's willing to work with you for that, an insurance agent that's willing to work with you for that, having a real estate agent that's helping you with the properties, having a lender in your corner to let you know what those payments are going to be, and making sure that they fit into your budget. And Becky, you said one thing that I really want to touch on. Everybody, not everybody, but you hear a lot about people saying, I'm going to wait until the market crashes. And Becky's right. The likelihood that that's going to happen again is pretty slim. We have so many loan programs put in place now to make sure that that doesn't happen. With COVID, and we touched on this in our last podcast, but with COVID, we saw the advent of forbearances. If people have lost their job, if something like a pandemic is going on and people can't make their payments, you know, we have those programs to fall back on. There's still loan modifications that have been around forever. You know, servicers are a lot more willing to work with people so that crashes like that don't happen.
Right.
And something else that I think people don't fully understand about 2008 is that there was so much working together in the real estate team, but not in a good way. Think more like government corruption kind of way, where the lender would call the appraiser and be like, hey, I need this inflated value. And then the lender would also have a conversation with the client of, well, do you actually make $2,000 a month? Or maybe we could just say it's $6,000. Like there was so much collusion that happened that really caused that without systems in place like forbearance. I mean, loan modifications were there, but they weren't as prevalent. And there was so much, what's the word? There was so much, like, just bad lending.
There was a lot. It was predatory lending.
It was predatory.
We definitely, I, again, wasn't an agent. And were you born? I mean, she's a lot younger than I am, so. But you weren't in the industry of lending. Obviously, she was still young. And I do very much remember predatory lending, but as a matter of fact, I want to say I had already bought my first house during that. And the reality is I didn't foreclose or anything, but I know that my loan was probably a lot more than I was comfortable with.
Oh yeah.
Just because I could do it. And I remember thinking any house that I looked at, they can magically qualify me. Fortunately, I trusted the person that I was working with at the time, and I didn't get myself in a situation, but things are definitely fixed from that aspect now. There's
the stories from 2008. I'll never forget. One of the people I was working with when he got his license, he heard a story of a client walk into a loan officer's office and they were like, "Oh, how much money do you make?" And this was like a kid. It was like a 20, 21-year-old kid. He's like, "Well, I mean, like I'm going to school and like I bartend some weekends, so I don't know, like $1,000 a month. But my parents said it would be a good idea to buy a house." And the loan officer goes, "Oh, okay. Well, we're just going to put down that you make $6,000 a month so that you can qualify for this. Where's your down payment coming from?" He's like, "Well, I mean, like I've got like some kind of money saved." And the loan officer was like, "Okay, well, can you get a gift from your parents?" "Yeah, probably. I mean, they did say it was a good opportunity for me to buy a house, so I'm sure that I could get something, maybe like $5,000, which at that point was probably like 3% again at that time." And so they're like, "Okay, cool. We're also just going to put down that you have $100,000 in assets." It was called a no doc, low doc loan. So when underwriting came through, they didn't verify any of that. And that poor kid, that 20-year-old kid who was bartending on the weekends, was just starting his life, starting his career. He was probably one of those people that lost their house in 2008. Right. And that kind of lending really doesn't exist anymore. There's one lender that I know of that will do a no-income loan, but we as loan officers, it's our fiduciary responsibility to our clients that we're putting them in the best situation possible. Unless it's something that absolutely has to be done, that is a last resort loan option.
Right. And talking about different loans and things like that, even in 2008, a 3% loan was a thing. People have this in their mind that they have to have 20%, but that's why talking to your lender up front and knowing what you need, what do you have in the bank, even if it's you figuring out what am I going to pay off, what makes sense, where do I pull this from, they're going to get you ready to be situated so you're not set up to lose your house. Whereas in 2008, it was all about the numbers and what they can close and how fast and how many, and it was awful. But looking back to 2008 and where we are now, one of the big topics that I hear now is, well, I'm going to wait to buy until the interest rates come down. And as a realtor, this is probably one of the things that makes me cringe. So I can only imagine how it makes you feel as a lender, because the reality is,
we came into such a rare market with COVID, and I don't think people recognize just how rare that was, and the likelihood of that ever happening again is like the likelihood at this point of a 2008 crash happening again. It is very slim to none. It's highly unlikely we will ever see interest rates drop below 3%. I mean, even to get like a 3.5% would be pretty significant. When I bought my first house in 2019, it wasn't a horrible market. It was a seller's market at that point too. And I think my intro interest rate was like a 4.5%. And I think that people aren't recognizing that like a 4.5% is still good. We're a little bit higher than that, don't get me wrong, but one of the biggest aspects that I really stress to my clients is if we can get you in a position where you can afford it now and you start getting that appreciation on that asset and you start being able to pay down that principal balance, why wouldn't we get you into the market now instead of trying to time it so that when interest rates come down, that's when you're buying? Because your buying power is also going to decrease.
Right.
People don't understand that.
That's the big thing for me. So I bought my house in 2005 and I got into it at a 7.25.
Mm-hmm.
So that was normal back then. Like if it was 8%, I was like, oh my God, that's high. Now people's expectation is that 6% is high. But here's what, from a realtor perspective, I think people don't always understand is that the interest rate's high, so we've gotten all these buyers pulling out of the market, just waiting for it to come down. So what happens is when the interest rates do drop, all of these buyers that were waiting are going to hop right back in. And what is that going to do? It's going to create bidding wars. You're going to pay more for your house. So you could buy your house today, let's just say for $200,000, but you wait till that interest rate drops. So now you're paying $225,000. Your loan's always going to be $225,000. If you buy it when it's not all these buyers and you get it for $200,000 at a higher interest rate, guess what, guys? You can refinance. The $25,000 that you paid extra because you waited for the rate is always going to be there. The interest rate can come down and you can refinance. And I think that's what buyers really need to kind of understand, is refi is the way to go.
Yeah, 100%. So very specific example, that first house that I bought in 2019 at that 4.5% interest rate, I bought it for $157,000. In 2023, February 23, so rates were still a little bit lower, it sold for $215,000, and I believe the person who bought the home got like a 5.5%, maybe a 6% interest rate. They're now paying a 6% interest rate on a $217,000 house because they bought it during a time when there were so many people who were like, I'm going to buy now. And like, yes, the rates did increase, so there is that aspect to it. But there were so many buyers on the market that it became a seller's market. It drove up prices, it caused those bidding wars, and now they're paying principal on a higher amount than had they purchased sooner.
Right.
Now, obviously, that's a pretty specific situation, but
that's a very common situation though. Like if you're buying now, you're not competing against a bunch of people. So even if it's $5,000, that $5,000 isn't going away when you're in a multiple offer situation. But your interest rate, you're going to buy now, you're going to start paying on it. You can refinance. I refinanced my 7.25. Never in a million years did I think it would drop as low as it did. But I'm at a 2.875, and I know that's probably never happening again.
Well, and again, like I feel like the word refinance has such a negative connotation to it, and I don't know why. It's really a tool. It's a tool that you can use to pay off debt. It's a tool that you can use to reduce your interest rate, to reduce your monthly outflow. And it's not something to be afraid of. It's not something to be embarrassed by that you went and refinanced your mortgage. If it works for you, then what does it matter?
I mean, also, I don't really care what they think. I got a house and you're still out there competing and overpaying when I got a house at a better rate and I just refinanced. So it ultimately, it doesn't matter. You have to do what fits your situation. And if you're capable of buying when the interest rates are a little bit higher, it can't hurt because also they could go up.
Right.
So what are you going to do? I have a house, you're paying rent, and you're never going to have anything to show for other than a rent payment. Whereas now I'm building my equity and having an asset that's not going anywhere.
And I think it's something very specific to Ohio to mention as well. Our values aren't going down.
Nope.
It's not like a Florida market. It's not like a California market. It's not like a Seattle, Washington market where you have seen decreases in market value. It's not going to be that way in Ohio because our prices have been so low for so long. That $150,000 house that I bought in 2019 is never going to be that low again.
Mm-mm.
It's just, even with the higher interest rates, it's still driving up our home values.
Do you think those markets, Florida, California, Seattle, do you think it's because of the, they're considered more of destinations that those values fluctuate so much? How many people, is the interest rates go up and the market gets a little bit tougher, those tend to be second homes or vacation homes. So those prices fluctuate. Do you think that's got anything to do with it?
So I think in different areas it has different things to do with it. Washington, Seattle specifically, you have a lot of industry out there, Amazon, Microsoft, you've got the university out there as well. And so because of that, it drove up prices. And as those companies are starting to realize that they drove up the prices and they're trying to protect their employees, it's sort of like deflating them a little bit. We also realize that the Pacific Northwest is a really amazing place to live. Shout out to Pacific Northwest, I'm from there. California, you've seen decreases in market a lot, primarily because of political situations. Florida is different though. Florida has second homes. Florida is a vacation destination. Florida has had a significant influx of investors for Airbnbs. But part of the reason that you're seeing the values decline out there is because of not only is it like a travel destination, and as we hit a recession, people don't travel as much, so industry is decreasing, but we've also seen significant weather events that are really impacting values, who wants to go buy a house when in a year your roof's probably going to get ripped off by a hurricane?
Right.
We've also had issues with insurance in Florida. There's like 2 companies left out there, 2 or 3 companies, and so it's a bit of a monopolized market, and their insurance prices are very, very significant.
I mean, we think that we have issues here because our roofs are 15 years old, and now they want to charge us more. Imagine being in Florida where hurricanes are hitting, and their whole houses are getting destroyed. So that definitely,
seeing decreases in those markets, like it does make sense as people look to decrease their monthly outflows in a different way, especially as we do come into what is looking to be like a recession. The reason I say Ohio's not decreasing is because we have an influx of out-of-state investors from California, from Florida, from Washington, who can now come in and acquire an asset, get the appreciation, and increase their monthly cash flow. So with them buying up the market, it's increasing values. And with other people who are fleeing places like California as their primary residence location and coming to the Midwest for a decreased cost life.
Because it's affordable.
It's affordable. It's so affordable.
First thing I always hear from investors is I hear Ohio's so affordable. Compared to a lot of places in the country, Ohio's pretty affordable.
I came from Washington State, and I will never forget, this is back in 2016 when I moved here. I was looking at these bungalow houses, and I'm from Vancouver, Washington, right across from Portland, Oregon. So our housing market was like, you're looking at $500,000 for your first home. I'm looking at these bungalows, like these 2-bed, 1-bath, and I'm like, there's no way. Those are probably like $300,000 homes. Like, there's no way. I would never buy a house out here. How ridiculous. Look it up on Zillow, and it's estimated at like $70,000. I'm like, no way. No freaking way. Right. So as much as I love the Pacific Northwest and I would love to go back, I don't want the grocery bill. I don't want the housing bill. I don't want the extreme increase of the budget that comes with that. Like, the salaries out there might be higher, but at the same time, if I'm a commission-based person and I'm gonna make the same no matter where I live, so why would I not have a lower budget and honestly a really nice home that I don't have to spend so much money a month on? Right.
I kind of laugh because when I was looking, we were doing a training and talking to agents from across the country. So I work with a lot of agents all over, and we were talking about investment properties and foreclosures and things that investors can do to get into the market. And I was talking to an agent from California, and they're like, oh yeah, our investment properties are like 1.5 million. And I was like, wait, what? We're talking like, there are $50,000 houses here for investors. And I'm like, 1.5 million, to me, that's just insane. That's a potential investment opportunity.
I can't wrap my head around that.
That blew me away.
I work with a lot of investors, and I can't imagine. I've never even
That's like an apartment building complex.
Right? I've never even tried to touch foot in like California because to me, it just doesn't make monetary sense. When I live here and I can invest here, why would I ever think about doing something in California? Airbnbs are great, don't get me wrong, from an investment opportunity, but like I can't.
But that's why all the out-of-state people come here to Ohio, because the market here is just affordable. And that's whether it's in the investment world or in a first-time home. So I do want to talk about first-time home buyers, because I think one of the things with first-time home buyers is they often feel like, I have to get this extravagant home for my first-time home. And the reality is you don't have to. You can get a really nice house, depending on location, but 200,000, 170. I mean, I'm starting to find that it's hard to find a move-in ready under 200.
Well, why does it have to be move-in ready for your first house?
I mean, I guess it depends who you are, because if you lived in my house and it wasn't move-in ready, we're struggling. We're hiring out everything. Not super handy in my household.
But also, like, what are people considering move-in ready? You look at houses in Cleveland and you still see pink tile, blue tile bathrooms.
Those are coming back though. Okay. It's what's crazy.
That's another conversation. But like, you still see those bathrooms. When I was house shopping originally in 2019, I was like, absolutely not, would never buy a house like that. But you can redo those
You can.
bathrooms if you really don't like it. So why would we not take the opportunity to take something, like to take the home that we have now purchased as our home and do a project and have pride in that project.
Right.
And you're getting it for a lower value too, because there's other people who won't do that, like me, because I was one of them.
Right. So, and I think that's where a lot of it is. So you asked, what's move-in ready? We all have a different definition.
Yeah.
I can care less. I mean, I might care, but like the color of the walls isn't going to affect your living.
Right.
So if you hate the paint scheme.
But now let's have a conversation about carpet. So there are homes that are on the market that haven't been touched since like 1970, 1980, and there's green carpet everywhere.
Who cares?
So to a lot of buyers though, especially from my
That's
generation,
not move-in ready.
that's not move-in ready. Why would I pay, $250,000 for a house where I'm gonna have to rip out the carpet? Because it's actually beneficial to you in the long run,
For
because
sure.
the next house down the block is going for $300.
Right. So again, first-time home buyers, one, obviously, cosmetic things don't make a house not move-in ready.
Right.
Two, it also doesn't have to be the house that you're going to live in forever.
Right.
How many people live in their house, they buy one house and live there their entire life?
Right.
Maybe back in the 20s and 30s, and
When we had very different expectations about
Right.
what a house needed to be.
but most people buy their starter home and then I like the words that I heard for it is they right size.
Mhm.
So you buy your first home, then you might upsize, and then you build your family. Maybe you move again, maybe you don't. Maybe that right size house that you upsize to is where you're going to raise your family. And then as you get older, you right size again, and this time you downsize.
Yes.
And then that's your remaining life home until you go and whatever. But
I feel like a lot of first-time homebuyers are jumping into this like, oh, I want to have a family, I want to have 2 kids, and I want to get married, so I should have at least 4 bedrooms. And then maybe if I work from home, so it needs to have an office. And then, you know what? Everybody has a kitchen island on social media. I really need a kitchen island too. My big thing is double ovens. My next house must have double ovens. But like the expectations that we see on social media are so far from the truth of what you really should buy for your first house. And it's okay to move. You might be getting
Right.
a 30-year loan, but the likelihood that the number of people who actually pay off their 30-year loans is so slim to none. It doesn't make as much of a difference as you might think. It's
No.
not wasting money on interest. It's getting an investment that, yeah, you're living in it, but it's still an investment for you.
and you're paying a mortgage or you're paying rent. And oftentimes, those two numbers aren't that far apart.
No, they're not.
And then when you have a mortgage, you have a tax write-off, you have your home expenses that become tax benefit to you. So buying a home, I've had clients that have bought a home. One of my clients bought her house 2 years ago, almost exactly to the day, 2 years ago. And she bought it for $245, and 2 years later, she's selling it for $270.
Mhm.
So
And there's so many people who are like, oh, if you're not going to be in this first house for at least 5 years.
$25,000 in 2 years
Yep.
is not a bad investment.
Right.
You maybe you paid interest, but you also had a tax break for that. It's a tax write-off for your interest,
And she's paid down principal.
and she's paid down principal. So her profit is still there. Even if she broke even, again, when you pay rent, you're breaking even every day of the week. Like you're never gaining from paying rent. So, people that look and think, well, I have to be there forever to make it worthwhile, that is such a myth
Right.
and so not true.
Well, and I think a lot of it comes down to goals too. Is it your goal to stay in one house forever, or is it your goal to buy a house? Because we have to stop looking at houses as this is where we're going to be forever, or I have to have this exact kitchen setup just like this influencer that I've been watching for the last 6 months. We have to stop looking at it as a form of missing out, and instead look at it as this is our way to get in. My husband and I have a dream right now to purchase land and build our own home, and what we're finding is that we're not crazy about the land values. They're high, but there's things to look at of, do we put a manufactured home on there for a little bit and live that way for 2 years or so and then work towards building? Because our goal and our dream is to have the land. Our goal and our dream is then to also have the house, but maybe the house comes after the land purchase, and we're just trying to find a way to hit that goal, to hit that dream. So if the goal and the dream is to buy a house, maybe look at ones that aren't the FOMO aspect.
Right. I definitely think that people miss out a lot because they're looking for what they think is perfect. And I've been in my house for 20 years and my house still isn't perfect. There are still things that I want to do, but it's home.
Right.
It's where we do all the family things, and at the end of the day, yeah, there's things that I need to fix and there's things that I still want to change. Like our master bedroom is still, other than paint on the walls, not what I want, but guess what? It works.
And I think the home renovation shows have also put like a spin on what
Right.
people expect. The first step in home buying is to have a conversation with the lender to know what you expect. The second step is to have a conversation with your agent. The third step is to go through and figure out what are the things that you absolutely cannot give up and what are the things that you're willing to. My big one, I won't buy a house that has a sink in the kitchen island or a stove. Stove particularly because I have a 5-year-old and my biggest fear is that she's going to run by and grab something on the stove. So those are the big things for me, and other than that, let's look out the footprint and layout, because if I can afford it now and if it works for us now, maybe it doesn't work in 5 years, but it does now, and my goal is to have a home.
Right. And so one of those things that you said is you have certain expectations of what you want in a house, but you also know that you have the ability to fix some of those things yourself. And
I know I can't fix the stove in the island,
Right.
or it's not something that I'm willing to fix.
it's a big fix.
I can fix the green carpet. I can fix the yellow walls. I can fix those
Right.
things. So I look at a house in a what am I willing to do without, and what are my non-negotiables.
Right. And so when you look, you really, really want to look at the bones of the house. Do the bones work, and could I eventually get them to be how I want them? And the avenue to get there, is it realistic?
Right.
Like if you buy a house that you walk in and I'm gonna totally gut the kitchen and I'm totally gonna gut the bathroom, I mean, the kitchen's your biggest expense.
100%.
Like you wanna totally demo your kitchen and take that stove from the island and put it somewhere else. That's a lot bigger expense than just replacing the flooring or painting the cabinets.
Also, what's the likelihood that you're actually going to
to
do it?
Right. So we definitely have the ability to pick and choose what makes sense in a house, but to expect to move in and have it exactly what you want with brand new floors, brand new, fixtures and everything. Fixtures, you can go get a fixture. People are like, oh, those are old fixtures. Like $30 to replace a light. No big deal, like super easy fix. But I want to go back to one of the things you just said was your first step, lender, second step, realtor. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't mind when a buyer comes to me first.
Oh, yeah.
Because I want to direct them to a good lender. I want to point out to buyers out there that, can I work with any lender? Yes, absolutely, no questions. However, there is a difference in lenders. I feel like a lot of buyers' first instinct, and I find that when buyers come to me and they're already pre-approved, they went to their bank. They went to Huntington, they went to Chase, they went to PNC, they went to Key Bank. I want buyers, if you've got that pre-approval, I want you to go to a mortgage lender, because for me, a mortgage lender, they care how you get there and if you close, whereas a bank, they will toss out pre-approvals without truly verifying all the things because they're salary. They don't care. They don't care if they run the credit and do all the things and we get under contract and now we're ready to close and oh well, it didn't close, I still get paid. Whereas a mortgage lender.
Well, and some of them have more cookie cutter guidelines too,
Yes.
where like they aren't willing to make exceptions, they aren't willing to look at gray area. And I'm not talking like, hey, let's fudge your numbers. I'm talking
No.
like, hey, this person's been commission or bonus income for a year and a half instead of 2 years. How can we look at that? Or they went from 1099 to W-2. There's a lot of companies that would throw that out. You can actually qualify even if it's like the first of the year as long as you're in contract.
Right.
So there's so many nuances that unless somebody works specifically in mortgages as their day-to-day. There's nuances that they're not going to know. There's guidelines they're not going to know. I know people who have worked in mortgages specifically for 20 years, and they still don't necessarily have the guideline knowledge. So finding the right lender that's knowledgeable, that really takes their fiduciary responsibility for their clients seriously, and also somebody that you jive with.
Right, and I will always, you will never find me referring a buyer to a bank, ever. It's just not gonna happen. I also know that when I work with Madison, I can send her a property. I could be out showing houses, so we all worked during the day. That's how we afford our houses. So you've gone to work and now it's 5:30 and you wanna go see this house. So I take you out to show you this house, and I know that it's a house that is fantastic, great price for the house, it's priced right, and while we were there, 3 other people came through. This might be a hard one, so I wanna know right away, can we afford it? So I can send Madison at 7 o'clock at night the information, and guess what? I'm probably gonna get a response.
Within like 10 minutes usually.
Right,
Yeah.
whereas if you're working with a bank and it's 7 o'clock at night, guess what? We're waiting till probably 9 o'clock in the morning. So there's also that advantage of having that lender who cares if you close, who doesn't get paid unless you close. So they're gonna make sure that they've done all the research. They've crossed the T's, dotted the I's, and they know that you are capable of buying this house and aren't gonna default on the loan because they've checked everything. Not that you're not gonna, the numbers indicate you're not gonna be in a situation where you can't afford it. They do their due diligence.
Something else that we do too. So we're not allowed to tour the properties with you guys, but we can at least look at the listing pictures on Zillow. And something that I've found that's actually really beneficial for my clients is to look through the pictures and be like, hey, just a heads up, like this could be an issue on the appraisal for your loan type. This might have to get fixed. Because going through looking at the house, you kind of like fall in love with it a little bit. You start imagining where the furniture is going to go, but maybe it's an FHA loan and we're not paying attention to the peeling paint on the deck because you're like, oh, I can take care of that, no problem. But from an appraisal standpoint, that's going to be a problem.
Well, and I look for those things as your realtor. So having a realtor that knows what to look for too, like
and knows what loan type you're in.
Right. I've worked with lenders, and I will say, so this is the situation here. This is peeling. The buyer's willing to do it because as a buyer, there are certain things with FHA and VA. They have to be done prior to close. Safety issue has to be done. It's not like a point of sale where it can be done after closing. So knowing those things and being able to have that communication, because I work with lenders pretty closely, make sure you have an agent that knows what those things are as well. So they can communicate with the lender to share, this is what I'm seeing, what are your thoughts? And if there's a question for FHA, VA, then I'm not sure, I'm gonna call the lender and I'm gonna say, hey, this is what I see, what are your thoughts? We don't have the answer because we're not the appraiser, but we have a pretty good idea on what's gonna happen based on our knowledge.
And maybe there's something you can set up in the contract that's like a hey, if then this kind of situation.
Right.
So there's additional protections, and that's really where your real estate team comes into play.
I was just gonna say, it's definitely a team process. Having a lender and a realtor that can communicate regardless of what day of the week or what time of day it is super beneficial to the buyer. So I think that when you have a team of
You have your dream team.
Right.
When you've got me for insurance, you've got me for lending, and you got Becky as your agent.
Right, perfect, that's perfect. So you have the perfect team, waiting for the perfect moment. Is that really a thing?
Perfect moment is now. Just go ahead and make the call.
Right. So obviously there's so much, and this probably won't be the last time that we sit down together because Madison is a wealth of knowledge, not with lending, but also with investing. So a lot of buyers, you buy your first home, you don't have to sell that home. Maybe you want to turn it into an investment. So I know we'll have you back again because it's always beneficial to hear your insight, and she knows so much at such a young age. Like I think I'm darn near double her in age. So I really appreciate you breaking it down so we can understand. I learn stuff every time that I have a guest because, I mean, I know all the things, but there's always something I don't know, and Madison can always help uncover that and share it with you guys. So thank you for helping inform our audience, keeping them feeling like buying a first home doesn't have to be so scary.
Yeah.
As you said, having the right team,
Yeah.
going through those conversations. So thank you, Madison, for joining me today. I look forward to the next time that you are here. And if you need help navigating through the home buying process, Madison Avolio Oaks with Synergy One Lending. I'm Rebecca Nedelka, your realtor mom, eXp Realty. We will definitely keep your process simple, smooth, and sold.